Well, we got one thing to talk about. NASCAR had a test at Fontana after the race on Monday and today. I think William Byron's driving the car.
That's right.
I got a text on my phone about the fact that the car had a single lug on it and to be ready for that all to hit the hit social media and create quite a conversation, which it did. NASCAR is going to a single lug, much like you would see on an Indy car. For the new car, the traditional 5-lug pattern will go away in Cup. Now, we're going to have it in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series for the foreseeable future. I don't know when that stuff is all going to be transitioned out or if it will ever change, but we're expected on the Xfinity side to make that change at the same time as the Cup guys, which is nice. It will be a little bit of an expense on the front end. Anyhow, it did create quite an uproar because a lot of people are like me. I mean, I'm a traditionalist. I like old school. I don't like a lot of change. And, most of the cars that you see driving around on the street do have more than one lug. There's not many single lug cars out there going up and down the road. So there's a lot of people that feel like that, they want cars to remain as similar and close to what you're going to see on the production room floor. Yeah, I mean, I can see that argument because I would have totally been head on against this change maybe 5-10 years ago. I would be railing against NASCAR for doing this.
Simply from a tradition
standpoint.
standpoint.
Just because I don't want it to change.
Okay.
I want it to stay the same.
I got you.
Why are we changing something that's not broke, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, and I've had the same conversation, but I'll have it again. About a couple years before the end of my career, particularly the last year, something just happened, man. I just got to where, you know what, I'm going to pick my battles, and I really don't want to. Some things aren't up for debate. They just aren't. This is a change that is going to happen. Now, do I want to sit there and waste energy complaining about it, even though I can't change it?
Right. This isn't the hill you're wanting to die on.
No.
You got to pick your battles.
Now, I sent y'all something on social media
right.
earlier
right.
In the weekend. I guess NASCAR sends out these fan surveys, which I need to get on that email list. Good Lord.
They probably have you blocked from that list.
One of their biggest fans.
Yeah, that's true.
I am a big NASCAR fan. Would love to be on the fan survey email list. But I get this stuff secondhand. Apparently, in this fan survey, they're asking fans about their opinion on where the number is located on the car, whether, you're okay if the number's moved. And what I mean by that is take the number and slide it back toward the rear tire, even put it on the rear quarter panel, make it really, really small, and place it all over the car, right? Now, that is a hill I'm willing to die on.
Now, why is that? Explain that one.
If you said to me today, all right, you got you can affect one of two things, where the number is and what it looks like, or the single lug wheel, I could give a less about that single lug wheel.
I gotcha.
I don't care about the single lug wheel. All right. And you know why? Because I've had wheels fly off my cars before.
Sure.
Now they don't. This is not something that happens often. And I know that the single lug wheel is not foolproof. But if it is any safer than what we have, I'm all for it. As long as it keeps the tire on the car. I went down into turn one on the restart and lost the left rear tire and spun out. Took Jamie McMurray with me. Hard crash. And I've had wheels, and it terrified me.
Yeah.
From that moment on, it terrified me anytime I had a vibration. Terrified that I was going to have a wheel come off. Because, you can't slow a car down without a wheel on it.
Right.
Right? Mashing the brakes, it just don't do nothing.
Yep.
So, from that standpoint, if it's any safer, great. Single lug all the way. It's not. I don't watch the race to see guys changing 5 versus 1. It doesn't matter to me. Pit stops are going to look the same to me. Guys are still going to have the potential to make mistakes, do it wrong, do it better, do it faster.
And to be clear for anybody that doesn't know, that they're changing to an 18-inch aluminum wheel, and so the engineering behind that is to say that 5 lug nuts on an 18-inch aluminum wheel isn't going to be as safe as. I think they even had some numbers and percentages, like 30% less durable or whatever it is.
Right.
But that being said, that's the reason. That's the logic.
Well, yeah, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I don't feel like arguing over it. I don't feel like fussing over it and tweeting about it. And you know what I do want to argue over and tweet about?
The number.
And argue, and fight for is where the number's located on the car. Now, all right, sponsorships change. They change weekly. Some teams have so many sponsors, like they run a different looking car every week, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that remains the same, the one thing that keeps the identity of that vehicle is the number, right? That is the one link, solid, consistent link to that driver week in and week out. So, the number, where the number is matters to me. I don't want it on the back of the car or on the quarter panel. Now, sliding it back toward the right rear tire, I'm all right with that. Keep it on the door. All right, so this is the reason why I am okay with them sliding it back, okay?
Okay.
It does have an old school sort of feel to it, but it also opens up. Basically, NASCAR took the contingency decals off the front fenders of the cars.
That's right.
Right? And they're trying, well, not NASCAR, the RTA. In conjunction with that, they're trying to figure out how to sell that space. All right, now if they slide the number back, that certainly opens up a larger area for a nice, visible logo to appear. All right, and
like
now
right on the door panel, like big logo, almost like as big as it is on the hood. Now the logic behind this is get a logo big on the side of that car.
Now that's the point of trying to take the number and putting it on the rear quarter panel. Is that now you have the entire side of the car to put a logo and a sponsor.
All right.
And I get that, but it's just too far. It's just too far away from tradition. It's just too far away from what I'm comfortable with to move it from outside of the tires, right? Now, if you take the number and slide it back to open up a little more space on that side of the car to put a logo, that's great. Or just keep it where it is.
You would really be okay with that, though? I mean, like in your perfect scenario, you're saying don't change a thing. But if they moved it to the back, all
right. So NASCAR has made rules. I don't know if they've relaxed these at all, but they've made rules on the size that the number can be on the door. Did you know that?
No.
So
it's got to be a certain size.
It can't exceed a template that they have, so that the number's not just basically taking up the whole side of the car, which I don't like. I feel like that it sort of puts everybody in the same box. It takes away a little bit of creativity and setting yourself apart and whatever you want to do with the number of your car. You're limited now because there's this template that NASCAR wants you to fit into. So they created this. All right, so I would have made the 88s on my car bigger. All right.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I thought they were just a little small for me.
Wow. Okay.
All right. They've made that change. They've limited the size and what the number can, how big the boxes can be for the number. Right. I just think that the number needs to stay in between the tires. Like it can be slid forward, it can stay in the center, or it can slide back. Mm-hmm. But don't take it off the side of the car.
Did you find this on Twitter by chance? Was that where you saw this? Okay, so
Reddit. I have to say that I found it through NASCAR Reddit.
Reddit, okay. And so they had a graphic of how many options is this? 6?
Yeah.
And then I saw your tweet where you're like, there's really only 2 options in your world, and they're of the 6 that they got, right? So you're not an official voice in this, as far as the fan goes. You'd like to be. I got it. I'm still formulating my opinion on that. You know where I struggle? I struggle with wanting to be a purist, but also, I struggle with wanting to keep the sport going and keeping up with the trends. In fact, that's how I apply my logic with the single lug nut wheel.
Yeah.
Is it? Listen, sure, I'd love 5 lug nuts, but if we're supposed to keep up with the trends and everything, there's a lot other things that are more concerning to me than the freaking lug nuts, which I hardly ever think about during a race. So I struggle from a purity standpoint and a traditional standpoint, but also I gotta want to get the sport to keep up with the times too. And then here you land in the argument of money versus identity, and identity is super important, and that's your point. what do people identify with? Because we think that we know that that's the key to your heart. You got to identify and have a relatability to stuff. So you don't want to go jeopardize the relatability factor, much in the way the car tomorrow did.
Yes.
And you got to have an identity. And I see your point on that. I just don't know what there's some things that NASCAR's changed that I thought would have bigger effect on the identity, but frankly, after the rules changed, I don't think anybody really noticed it after that. After the big overreaction for the first week, or something like that.
I hear you. So the COT basically, all right. There was a point in NASCAR when you could look out across the racetrack and pick out a Chevy and a Ford and immediately recognize the models and the cars, right? And then we got to a point where that was very difficult to do.
Yeah, almost gone.
That was bad for us to lose the brand identity of the manufacturers, and the manufacturers suffered for it. And their ability to really get behind the sport and promote and invest in the sport became challenging because they couldn't get a return on it because their car wasn't obviously recognizable out there on the racetrack. So we've gotten some of that back, a lot of it back, really, to be honest with you. When you look at the noses of the cars, they are not as similar as they used to be. They've got their own sort of markings and grills and character lines and so forth that set them apart, which is great. And the more we can keep that identity, the better. I feel like that this is a similar situation to where if you take that number and you minimize it, you place it somewhere on the car where it's not as easily visible, you're basically taking the identity away from that car, connects it to that driver.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you think about Darrell Waltrip, you think about number 11, number 17. When you think about Dale Jarrett, you think of 88.
Think of the number.
Right. You think of the number. You often think of the number before you do the sponsor, and it's that's even tougher now because teams have so many different schemes. I remember.
I agree.
In the 90s, it was crazy when a guy was going to run a different paint scheme, and they did that on select events.
All-Star race.
All-Star race. It's like, oh man, All-Star race he's going to have an orange car.
Right.
It's crazy. Dad ran a black car every year, week in and week out. He's going to have a silver car? What?
Yeah.
All right. Now, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Now, guys are changing cars and colors and sponsors week in, week out of necessity. It's not a big deal. It's not talked about. And I feel like that, why? Is because that number is the identity, the link from the car to the driver. If you take that number away, if you minimize it, make it small, make it insignificant, how in the heck can you tell who's who, right? When you're looking at cars
with all the sponsors changing all the time,
yeah.
Right? Who is it? Who are you? It would be hard for the spotters to even know which cars they are.
Yeah, if I'm watching the cars on the racetrack restart, I don't know who's where, what the hell.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're making your case.
So I just feel like that they got to be careful there. And you know what? I've learned, to NASCAR's credit, the survey is a survey.
Right. It wasn't supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be a news item.
It wasn't.
Right. And this is not new, by the way. This has been talked about for a decade.
Maybe that's why I'm not on the survey email.
Right.
Because I
guarantee it.
I would make all of the selections public. Have such a. It's basically to get everyone's temperature on it, and I feel like that NASCAR is going to walk away with that information, and make the correct choice. And so maybe maybe I'm getting all torn up about it for nothing. But your favorite driver was going to be driving this paint scheme every single week. Then you could probably make an argument that the number's not quite as critical.
Right.
Because
you could make that argument.
You could recognize this car every time you see it on the track. But they're changing cars and sponsors and stuff so often out of necessity that the number's really the last link to identity on and it's
kind of a brand.
It is a brand. It really
when an entity loses, or a person, when you lose your identity, what you want to be known for, what people can relate to, then you've really lost all of your equity, in my opinion, in all the stuff that you've built up. Because identity matters a lot. As far as this show goes, this show formed an identity over time, and we try to protect that identity. To a lot of times, and we, if there's if there's sponsors on the show that or potential sponsors, but it doesn't really fit our identity or Dale's brand, we turn it away. You got to be able to, you got to preserve your identity on what you want your show to be. Otherwise, those identities that just are those, just kind of ambling around and not really know what you are. It doesn't really work in the long game.
Yeah.
We want the sport to be around for a long time, and so if sometimes you have to just rely on the people that run the sport to make decisions. They're obviously in the long game as well, and I just don't think the lug nuts thing. Frankly, I don't apply the lug nut situation to my definition of a stock car. Frankly, I know why you. It just doesn't occur to me in my mind.
You change a car on the side of the road, are you hitting a single lug?
Well, if we wanted to get real traditionalist, then the cars would pull off to the shoulder, pop the trunk, go into the floorboard, pull out a spare tire, assemble the jack, the 4-piece jack thing, and just wind that son of a bitch up, wouldn't they? But that's not what they do. Yep. So nothing that they do in changing tires applies to my life. So that's why I guess I don't really look at it and define it as a stock car.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We are so beyond. I mean, it's decades. The stock in the stock car has been gone for decades.
Sure.
And I mean, I'd love to go back to looking out across the racetrack and seeing what really looks just like a production car going around there, but it's not. We're so far removed from it. It's an impossible ask, and this is just such a small, menial thing in the grand scheme of what makes the sport work and not work, and what we need to really concern ourselves with. Single lug versus 5 lug is a blip on the radar of what I think the real concerns are about the future of the sport and how we get better and how we improve. This whole car, the single lug is a tiny, tiny fraction of so much change that this new car is going to bring in.
Right.
This car is completely unlike anything. It's not similar at all, really, to the car they drive today. It's going to be a huge, huge shift away from, what we know as a stock car and what we know as a NASCAR stock car. And so it's funny because people are making such a big deal out of this single lug thing, but I mean, there's like a lot. There's a long, long list of things that are changing about the car that they drive today and the new car coming next year or 2021. So, I hope we don't have to have this conversation about all those items that are going to be different. But we'll see. It's been interesting, man, because they said they made a lot of changes on the. I guess this is the third version that they're testing today. They improved the ability for the teams to work on the car, change sway bars and springs and shocks and so forth, because it apparently was very difficult to change some of those items. And I can't wait to really lay my eyes on one of these cars, and I want to wait a while.
I know, right?
I want to wait because it's so early. There's some open tests later in the year, and there's a lot of tests. I was looking on, I think Matt Weaver? He had a list of on his social media. He had the schedule for all the tests.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of testing going on all year long with this new generation car, and
yeah,
it's going to make so many. I remember when the COT came out, it was so bad. I mean, it was obviously still bad when we were done making it, and then we began to race it. It was an awful car, but man, the very first few, versions of that car were so freaking bad.
Oh, that were being tested?
Yeah, so slow and terrible.
Oh, really?
Drove like crap. I mean, it drove worse than it did when it finally got.
Do you have a little bit of concern about the next gen car being, such an abrupt change to what we're used to that it's going to be the wrong car?
No, I don't. I don't feel like that it'll really look. I don't. One thing that I think will be the racing to me will not. I'm gonna, if I had to bet, right? I can't assume anything. None of us can. But if I had to guess, the racing's probably not going to look different.
I got you.
The cars are going to be visually shaped differently. In some ways, you can see pictures of the car on the internet. it's a little different looking, but when they're all out there together, it's going to look pretty much the same as it's always looked. We still haven't seen anything yet as far as the different manufacturers. This is kind of like the same car they keep bringing with the same body over and over.
Right.
And I imagine, I don't know how far, how much more change has to happen with that to make the cars unique from manufacturer to manufacturer, because that's so important. We talked about the brand identity. But I think there's a lot still to be learned about this car, and I'm going to sit back and wait. I'm not going to get too opinionated about what's going on right now because
yeah, you that's all good, and you are the most opinionated, instinctual person. I mean,
I just made my case. Single lug, 5 lug, don't
you
care.
did. I know you did, but that's good. That's good. But man, wait till the next change comes out, and who knows what it is? What if they, what if they got wings on the side of the next generation car?
There ain't no way they're doing that.